What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I'd like to talk about a question that many of you in the knife community have asked, and that's what's so great about Hinderer knives? You know, whether you're brand new to the knife world or you've been around for a while and you've just never handled one, you know, if you look at them and you enjoy the aesthetic, that's how I stumbled into them. I looked and I thought, wow, it's a good looking knife. How much is that? $425 for an XM18? Oh my gosh, that's crazy. But wait a sec, it seems like these are super popular. There's a lot of people who like them, right? So what's the deal with them? You know, what's so great about them? I'm going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about my own personal love for Hinderer knives and why I think they are so popular in today's knife world. Now, I am biased. I am a huge Hinderer fan. I feel like I owe that to every single person who's watching. Hinderer knives are definitely not for everybody, and this video is not meant to like convince every single person out there that you have to own a Hinderer knife. No, they're just simply not going to be for everybody. But it's really difficult for me to be purely objective. So I just want to let you know, I'm a gigantic fan. I've owned 25 different Hinderer knives in my lifetime, and I've handled substantially more than that given how willing people are to, send me knives for review and to look at them and stuff. So yeah, I've built a very firm foundation, in terms of my love for Hinderer knives. So keep that in mind as we go through this video. If you guys are new or you've been around for a while, you guys know that I do have Patreon. So if you'd like to support this channel, at the same time, get your hands on one of these cool stickers and also gain access to my once-a-week Patreon exclusive content, follow the link down in the description to my Patreon. Have a look around, and then if you would like to support me, that would absolutely mean the world to me. First off, before we get started here, I just want to let everybody know not all of these are mine. In fact, only one of them is mine. However, this one used to be mine, this one used to be mine, this one used to be mine, and I think that's it. The rest of them, let's see here. Mr. Kyle Roberts sent me this guy, and then my buddy David, who many of you might be familiar with that name if you've been watching my channel for a while. He picked this one up for himself, bought this one for me, this one for me, this one for me, picked that one up for himself, and then this one we picked up on the secondary market. So the reason I'm doing this video is because, I have this opportunity to show all of these knives in the same video and talk about them. And that's kind of a rare thing to have so many Hinderers in the same place. And so I thought, I'd kind of be silly for not doing a video. So the big flagship model, the one that's, really I think made Hinderer knives famous is the XM18 3.5 inch. Now these guys are bulky. The standard thickness is about 145 thousandths on the titanium side. Now normally they come with a liner and a G10 scale. I've got this outfitted with a titanium scale, but it really looks more so like this. But you can see they're fairly thick. And then we have 165 thousandths on the blade. That was the knife that kind of exploded Hinderer knives into fame. And now on top of that, though, the reason that they initially was just this bloodlust, after him is because they started to gain a reputation amidst what a lot of us refer to as the original Holy Trinity, and that was the Sebenza, the Chris Reeve Sebenza 21, the Strider SNG, and the Rick Hinderer XM18. The Rick Hinderer XM18 kind of being, the Sebenza was kind of the fancy one, the Strider was kind of the hard-working one, and the Hinderer XM18 kind of struck this perfect balance with a lot of people in between the two, right? So it started rising up. It was an expensive knife, but it was known for being built really well. Well, at the time, Rick Hinderer couldn't keep up with demand, and he was making it to where, I believe, you could only directly purchase Hinderer knives on his website. This was way back in, I imagine 2012. If you were, military, first responder, something like that, you could purchase directly from his site. Every now and then he'd kick a few out to dealers, and they'd get bought up immediately. So what happened? Secondary market prices went through the roof. And I mean through the roof. $800 or so for a good condition XM18. Good luck getting a 24, which is the big brother, right? So anyways, it created this I gotta have that, right? I definitely got drawn in there, right? That's where my love for these knives was created. And I did the thing that many people did. They settled for the ZT variant, the ZT0562, for lack of being able to afford or just find an XM18. Well, as time went on, Rick Hinderer, was able to produce more and more and more. He came out with more models. And so eventually everything leveled out. And he had a bunch of good strategies. He's very innovative, very good with designs. This really just sort of caught on with people. Now, I don't have every knife out here that's a that's a Hinderer knife, but I have a lot of the really popular models. I'm going to try and keep everything in frame. These are his newer half tracks. There's some smaller versions. We have, of course, a Spanto and a Warncliffe. I think originally the Spanto was USA made blade exclusive, and the Warncliffe currently is USA made blade exclusive. We have a Generation 2 Eclipse. The reason I say that is because we'll talk about this, but the Hinderer Eclipse does not have the new tri-way system installed. We have the half track, which, or I'm sorry, the full track, which I believe this version of is now sadly discontinued, but I think they're going to be changing it up a little bit. Actually, I have two of the exact same. They're both spear point. And then we have XM18s. It's a fatty variant. And I know people are like, oh my gosh, so many different colors. You know, how do you keep sorted what is what, you know? XM18 fatty, Gen 4. This is a tri-way, so Gen 6, tri-way, Gen 6. This is actually a vintage series with a titanium scale that's been installed, and then a stock vintage series. Both of these are spear points. So the XM18 3.5 inch is the flagship model. There is, of course, a larger version. That's the XM24, and a smaller version, and that's the XM18 3 inch. Amidst all of these, there's actually different thicknesses, you know, so I do this in every Hinderer video, but I like to squash. You know, there's still some old, you know, things floating around about Hinderer knives. One of the things is Hinderer knives run on nylon washers, so I don't want to buy them. Guys, with the new tri-way system, which has been out for a while now, that's this symbol right here. That means that the internal pivot hardware can be swapped between phosphor bronze, bearings, and nylon. And no, you don't have to purchase those extra. If you purchase the Generation 6 XM18, it comes with all of that hardware. It's very easy to switch the hardware out so people can get what they want. And then another one is Hinderer knives don't cut. They're ground too thick. Well, the truth behind that is that different knives come in different thicknesses, both of the spine and the final cutting edge, depending, you know, so that they are, you know, they emphasize cutting performance with different materials or in different situations. But Rick Hinderer has so many different blade shapes. You're not seeing even close to everything that he offers here. Spear point, slicer, harpoon Spanto, Warncliffe. We've got the Spanto. We've got, what's another one that I'm leaving out here? I'm sure that there's a whole bunch of them. The sheep's foot, right? There's a whole bunch of different ones. But on top of that, he offers each different size in varying thickness, right? So you can get an XM18 3.5 inch in a fatty variant, which is this 187,000 stock thick here. Or you can get it in a 165, which is right here. Or you can get it in a 145, which actually I don't think I've got any up here that are going to be about that. The skinny XM18 3.5 inch comes in 145 thousandths. So if you could imagine a slicer grind at 145, it's going to be a much better performer. Beyond that, because I know there's a lot of people going 145 thousandths in a slicer grind isn't a performance blade. You actually can go down to a 3 inch. And you can get a skinny there, and they're even thinner. They're only about 125 thousandths on the spine, and you can get a slicer grind, making them truly a more performance-oriented blade. So whether you want thick or thin for one reason or another, you know, whether the foundation is utility or performance, or it's just your liking, right? There's something for everybody. The other thing, you know, is Hinderer has proprietary hardware. Well, even on these, which is what people are talking about with the spanner side, it's pretty easy to get a spanner bit. They cost about $1.50 at your local hardware store, or you can cut a notch in a penny or whatever. On some of the newer ones, like the full track here, the tool for disassembly is actually included in part of the backspacer. I think these are awesome. It's very innovative, giving you the ability to adjust or take the knife apart on the fly. Literally the entire thing, and then underneath the scale actually houses the tri-way hardware because this is a tri-way. Any of the models that you see tri-way on, the tri-way symbol means that the internals can be swapped out, and he's in the midst of transitioning all of his models to the tri-way system. An example of one that doesn't have it yet is the Eclipse. His thing was wanting to cater to everybody, wanting to make sure that you know, everybody gets what they want and still has a dependable cutting tool, right? You'll hear these types of complaints, that you hear these things, and it's just it's for people not having all of the information, right? Like I said, you're not seeing anywhere close to the vast array of models and styles that he offers. The one thing that makes it difficult, usually the thing that stops people from buying a Hinderer knife, is the fact that they are expensive, right? just the standard production variants. First off, the least expensive knife that you can get brand new that is a Hinderer is the Hinderer slip joint, the Slippy. I believe those run $275, $280 at base. That's a simple slip joint knife. Very expensive, right? And then they go up. I believe the next one in line is probably the 3-inch Eclipse, which is the only variant of the Eclipse that has the tri-way system in it. Those run something like $375. And then I think some of your other skinny variants of the 3-inch might run about the same. Next tier up, standard 3-inch or XM18 3.5 inches with nothing, no extra, whatever. Also in there is the Maximus and the Jurassic, and some other. There's a few other variants. That's kind of the standard, right? The XM18 3.5 inch with G10, you're looking at $425, right? That's expensive. They only go up from there, right? They go up like your fatties at base run $485, your full tracks run $625, your XM24s run $625, and that's not I mean, like, we're not even talking about special variants, right? Because if you want something special, yeah, he makes it, but it's going to cost more money. And then he does, of course, do custom grinds, right? Now, for a lot of people, and I will, I'll go ahead and say, the vast majority of people complaining down there in the comment section, whenever you're watching this, it doesn't matter if you're watching it a minute after I uploaded it, hopefully not just a minute after I uploaded it, or you're watching it 3 years in the future, the vast majority of the people down in the comment section complaining are going to be complaining about the price. And I can't fault them for that. That's a lot of money. And a lot of people just don't see where the value is in that. And the truth is at the end of the day, beauty, value, all that stuff is in the eye of the beholder. I'm somebody who's experienced a lot of them and just really likes how they look, how they feel, how they function. So I'm going to be able to support that value in my mind. I'm going to tell people, like, if you're really going to, drop some money, drop it on a Hinderer knife because they're going to be great. But not everybody's going to agree, and that doesn't mean that they're necessarily, wrong. But the main idea here, the thing that I'm trying to emphasize is that Rick Hinderer has really done a great job knowing that, like, hey, listen, I make a full USA product. These knives are precision made in-house. He makes all the parts for them. He makes everything in-house in the United States. Premium materials, right? Most tri-ways are going to be either S35 VN or CPM 20 CV. Very premium grade of steel. Everything's nicely finished. Everything's perfectly. I mean, I haven't seen a fit and finish flaw with a Hinderer in like since Gen 4. And even then, in my opinion, they were minimal. We'll talk about some of the other cliches with older Hinderer knives here in a sec. But he does a great job of offering, whatever you're looking for. If you've got that kind of money to spend, you want a precision-made product, you have a lot of choices. On top of that, he offers a vast array of custom parts for your knife. You want to build, you've got the money to spend, you're looking for a premium product, and you want to build something that's catered towards you. You can see here, a lot of these actually have been outfitted with custom parts. Titanium scale, titanium scale, titanium scale, titanium scale. Then we have some custom parts. There's some bronze anodized parts. The back of this one is bronze. You can see there we have working finish. We've got this sort of bead blasted, sort of almost matte stonewash finish. Then we have like a true stonewash finish. We've got DLC. There's a whole bunch of stuff I'm not even showing you here. And don't even get me started on the number of different custom scales you can get. Yes, this is a full copper scale. No, it's not for sale. I know somebody's going to ask me. Not even mine. It's David's, and I promise you he won't sell it. But anyways, these parts are expensive, right? I mean, it's like, I know people are going to go, well, okay, yeah, that's great. You can customize it and make it however you want, but it's so expensive. How much does it cost for a standard Hinderer XM18 to be outfitted with a full titanium scale? You're looking at $625, only making that one change. That is a lot of money, and there is no part of me that's ready to say, you should definitely go do that. Nope. But for those of you who have been looking at Hinderer knives and going, those are good looking, I'd like to build something. Yeah, that's this is where it's at, because you are, in some ways you're limited, special runs and things, but in other ways, really, if you want to build something that's truly yours, his thing, Hinderer's thing is make it your own, and you truly can make it your own with parts that have been made in-house by Rick Hinderer, right? Or by Hinderer Knives. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff on the aftermarket, but if you want all Hinderer stuff, right? It's in-house. It's like a Jeep, right? A Jeep Wrangler. You buy a base Jeep Wrangler, you can buy a whole bunch of stuff from the aftermarket to dress it up, but there's also a whole bunch of stuff offered by Jeep that you can outfit on your Jeep and make it exactly what you want. Coincidentally, I think Rick Hinderer is a fan of Jeez. Notice me, Rick Hinderer. I'm kidding. Anyways, but yeah, I mean, it's amazing. So we're 14 minutes in, and all I'm saying is like, well, it's really neat that you can, build what you want. Let's talk about one other cliche, something that I still hear every now and then about Hinderer knives. Hinderer knives don't flip. They have weak detents. Here's an example of a late Gen 4. What do I mean by Gen 4? Well, Generation 4 was the last generation where there was no steel lock bar insert. You can see there's a screw for the steel lock bar insert, and there it is right there. So Gen 4s, late Gen 4s, finally started to get the detents figured out, right? There was enough, you were able to build up enough kinetic energy back here to fire the blade. There were some, early Generation 4 models and back actually had very weak detents, and a lot of people hadn't quite figured out, frame lock flippers that were manual with properly tuned detents were still a fairly newish thing, 2012, 2013, early 2014. And a lot of times you'd see this, go to flip it and it would just kind of do this and people would have to do that. Well, there were some other, other makers out there who were doing these flippers just right. On top of that, flipper tab wasn't, a comfortable shape. The landing zone wasn't great. And so people just kind of got this impression like, well, I paid all this money for this knife and they don't flip. Long done with that. The detents on all of these are great. They have the action that is indicative of a very expensive knife. One that is what these cost. You can see there, this one's a user, as a lot of these are. I'm sure you can tell. And it's got nearly false shed actions. A lot of you guys will remember this one. This used to be mine. I sold it to David. The detents on these are great now. They do flip. Anybody who says that they don't flip has not handled a Hinderer knife for a very long time. Anyways, I forget where I was going with that, but the reason that I am so, it's so easy for me to recommend a Hinderer knife, despite them costing so much, is all of the little details, all of the tiny little things that I think make these a good user. Now, keep in mind, you can get them in different thicknesses, but number one, first and foremost, Rick Hinderer's designs are ergonomically fantastic. Whether you have smaller hands or you've got much larger hands, he really thinks about where the human hand is going to lie on the knife. Every last little thing, all of the little things that we look for as critics. You don't have to be a knife reviewer to know what I'm talking about, right? How the knife feel, like the lock-in position back here, how much room you have right here is, the choke-up position, whether or not there is one, whether or not lines all the way around are nicely chamfered, hot spots, things like that. That's all taken into consideration, right? And then on top of that, things like the external stops, right? Now, I'm not saying you should ever go out and pry with a knife, but whenever I see a nice thick stock bracing on thick titanium or thicker titanium than what you normally see, and then it's backed up by these stops mitigating pressure away from the pivot, it just gives me a little more confidence. Now, I know there's going to be at least one person going, the cold steel triad lock is the strongest lock in the entire world, and okay, that's fine. There's a lot of elements that are included on a Hinderer knife that are not included on a knife with a triad lock. For one thing, the ability to engage and disengage the knife with one hand effectively. And I know people argue saying, you can use one hand on the triad lock. It's easier to engage and disengage. Also having, something that's reliable with the polishes. It's not necessarily all about utility for me, but just the fine polishing, making sure that every last little part meets up perfectly, right? What's my proof of this precision? How do I know that it's that much better than other things out there that cost a lot less money? I can't tell you exactly where the line is. I'm not going to say that $150 knives don't do exactly the same thing as some of the $425 or more Hinderer knives out there. What I can tell you is that a lot of, what goes right along with Rick Hinderer's whole make it your own thing is the ability for many of the parts on the knives to be modular. Case in point, the pocket clip. As you can see here, pocket clips are the same. They're the same. They're the same. We've got a whole bunch of different styles here between the vintage here, and we've got this custom sort of tiger stripe one on the Eclipse. Those parts like that are modular. Not all parts are modular between these models, but if I wanted to take the clip off of this guy and put it on this guy, I could. Why? Because all of the holes, all the screws, everything, they are made exactly the same way. That might seem to a lot of people like, well, duh, of course, you know, the screws on a Gerber paraframe are the same. You'd be surprised how much wiggle there is in tolerances on a lower end production knife versus a knife like a Hinderer XM18. I've handled many knives and I've seen it not work. I've actually even seen it not work every time on a Benchmade knife. You know, a $150 to $200 Benchmade, sometimes pocket clips that should be modular are not, right? 99.9% of the time, if I want to take the handle screws out of this Hinderer XM18, or rather this Hinderer XM18 vintage right here, and put it on this Hinderer XM18 standard, I can do that, right? So if you're somebody who has a whole, like me, who's got a whole bunch of crazy custom parts, not just a lot of these scales that I just showed you, but also, you know, different colored, different anodized hardware, as long as it fits the style, meaning fatty or standard or skinny or whatever, you can swap those parts in and out. And that's fun, right? It gives you an opportunity to, you know, bring an older knife to life or just change something up, you know. And a lot of people think that that kind of thing is exclusive only to people who don't use their knives. This right here, this is a user. It's got custom hardware on it. This guy right here, this fatty, a lot of you will remember this from a very old video called Hinderer Knives After 6 months of Use. This has been cleaned up, but again, it's got custom parts. David uses it all the time. Again, this one, custom parts, you can see there. I wonder if we can get a close-up on the edge. You can see there's a couple of chunks taken out of the edge here, custom parts. And yeah, you're right, there's a lot more, I think, at this level. How much these knives cost at this level, there's a lot more collectors than there are users. But believe me, guys, these are not strictly pocket jewelry. They are absolutely made to be used. The idea behind the lock bar stabilizer and over travel stop, that disc not only stabilizes the lock bar this way, but also this way, right? So Rick Hinderer talks about in a situation where he used to be a firefighter, you know, in a situation where the adrenaline's pumping, he was, you know, trying to get somebody out of a vehicle that had crashed or was on fire or something. After he was done with his knife, he went to disengage the lock bar and actually bent it all the way over. Well, the stabilizer disc, the idea behind that helps prevent it. But on these knives, there's two of them, which isn't super uncommon nowadays. You've got the disc and you've got the lock bar insert, which doubles, right? So you've got a knife that is ready to deploys conveniently, whether you are using, a lot of people ask me like, I can't use the thumb studs, it's so heavy. Yeah, the D10's heavy, but believe me, guys, the thumb studs are made to be used, and I'm trying to show you guys a reverse flick. I'll do another one just to prove that I can do it with all of these. These knives are 100%. Oh God, I'm going to actually contradict myself. So sometimes when you get caught, if you find yourself trying to use your fingernail right, switch it to the meat of your finger, and sometimes that's all it takes to overcome the detent there. Same thing with this guy right here. That guy I can use my fingernail. But yeah, detent strength on even the brand new ones, you can still do that, but it's definitely heavy enough to suck the blade back in there. But anyways, it can be customized to the way you like it. It's premium. It's made in the USA. They've got modular parts. They're easy to take apart, very easy to take apart, change things out. In the case of the full track, you actually can store the hardware in there, and it actually comes with the tool, right? So yeah, these are expensive knives, but the reason that I came to the conclusion that Hinderer knives were, I'm not going to say universally better. I'm going to say that I came to the conclusion that for me, they were better than other knives out there in similar price ranges, that they are tools. They're convenient tools, extremely convenient tools that are performance oriented depending on which thickness you get and which blade style you get and what you're using them for. But I can also, that part of me that's an enthusiast and a collector, right? And somebody who just enjoys the general aesthetics of his knives, I can enjoy them infinitely, right? Yeah, it's going to cost me a lot of money, and I can't sit here and tell you it's absolutely worth it, right? What tactical or utilitarian benefit do you get from changing out the standard steel pivot to a bronze titanium pivot? None. There's no advantage there in utility, but it's fun. It's cool. I mean, I love how this stuff looks. It doesn't give me any sort of advantage, but man, I love how it looks. So, and like I said, Hinderer has no idea I'm doing this. I don't make anything from this. You know, it's been years of just being so infatuated with Hinderer knives and watching them expand. I mean, you know, if you don't want to believe me, go look at the history of Hinderer knives, where they started and where they are now. Rick Hinderer is the only maker out there that offers this many models in the quantity that he does, right? The availability, and also has control of a market of parts that you can apply to the models that you buy, and are modular with many of the other models that he's got, right? Nobody else out there is doing that exactly. He's the only one, right? And in terms of customization, I would argue that in terms of the total amount of parts that are available for any one model that's out there, I think the Hinderer XM18 is the most customizable, like readily customizable knife in existence. If you are, this is not going to be speaking to everybody, right? But if you are looking to spend between $400 and $600 on a very premium, very functional US-made knife by somebody who has enough experience in different fields to really know exactly what he's doing, right? And you like the idea of not only having a dependable tool, but having something that you can truly make your own, Hinderer knives. There's a lot of great knives out there that I recommend to people all the time, but if somebody came at me with that or anything close to it, my answer would be Hinderer before they even finish their sentence. That's the truth, right? You can look back at my channel, and I've got plenty of evidence to support what I'm saying, at least like how I came to be the way that I am, If the only thing holding you back from Hinderer knives is the price, I completely understand it. That I get that. I tell people all the time, I'm like, hey, if you don't want to spend that much money on a Hinderer, ZT's got some great models, that are Hinderer ZT collaborations. The one that's still in continuous production, I believe, is the ZT 0562 Ti and the ZT 0562 CF. Fantastic models that are very close to the real thing. Not quite, but very close. And they cost between $265 and $280, right? So much easier to do. Now, another thing I want to point out that I like, Rick Hinderer has managed to fit in that whole, because it used to be that if you owned a Hinderer knife, it was very special to be able to get your hands on one because they were unobtainable. They're no longer unobtainable. You can get them. But Hinderer has found a way to make certain models feel special. Now, with part of the community divided on that idea, right? With certain makers going, this is limited to 300 pieces. This is limited to 500 pieces. We'll never do it again, right? That puts a sour taste in people's mouths. Rick Hinderer has once again done a good job of understanding that. And so what he does is as a baseline, he makes certain blade styles and finishes standard, and he sort of rotates when they come out. Like, for example, for a while, he'll do a run of harpoon spantos, then he'll do a run of slicers, then maybe he'll do some Warncliffes, and then maybe he'll do variants in different thicknesses, right? There's a whole bunch of different ones. But at certain times, different styles and models will not be available. Does that mean he won't ever do them again? No, it just means that's it for right now. So you still get that feeling of it being special, kind of. At the same time, he'll throw in really special stuff like the vintage series, right? Or he'll throw in like a variant, like for a while there, he did a few gold DLC full tracks, right? Now the full track, if it's a discontinued model, that's one thing, but he just randomly throws out just really weird special versions of knives out there, and it's just whoever gets it, right? It doesn't mean that he's never going to do it again, but it still makes you feel special for getting your hands on one. Now, that's also kind of bolstering the whole I gotta have it now kind of thing. So people could be on one side or the other of it. But for me, the reason I like that is because somebody who's this is anybody who's still here with me at the 30-minute mark. If you're considering spending a whole bunch of money on a Hinderer knife and you're like, yeah, I really want to get something special. Every now and then he drops special things that are not, constantly available. Standard finishes that you can find all the time. Your working finish, which you can see here, is quite a bit different than the stonewash. Then you, of course, have DLC, which is going to look something like this. Another finish that I don't have up here is the blackwash DLC. There's also a stonewashed DLC, which is different from blackwash. There's anthracite finishes, which he hasn't done for a while. He has the gold DLC, or the FDE, which is a flat dark earth DLC. And then there's like a digicamo one. There's a battlefield pickup one. A whole bunch of crazy stuff. There's so many different variants of things that almost anything you get is special in one way, shape, or form because it's not always available. But one thing I will say, because some people, there are still Gen 4s floating around out there, and if you just really like the original Gen 4s with the the standard lock face, you can see here, I mean, these users, both of these are hard users by David, and you can see there the lock bars are right about very close to the same place. No excess wear or anything like that. So do you need the lock bar insert? No. In terms of function, you're going to be fine with a titanium lock face versus the steel on steel interaction with the new Triways. But if you go shopping out there, you'll still find a few Gen 4s floating around, maybe even some Gen 5s for about $425, same price as the Gen 6. My opinion is that if you're going to buy a Hinderer, buy a Gen 6 because they have the newest detents. They have the Triway pivot system, which allows you to swap out the hardware to your liking or situationally. And all of the updated parts and everything, it's sort of, you know, if you're going to buy new parts and a new knife, it's sort of, you know, everything is going to be the best fit, right? Because all the machines that he's currently using to make everything, they're all cutting everything to the same tolerances or extremely close. That would be my suggestion. You'll experience none of the old cliche flaws that people used to complain about, and you'll get a truly exceptional knife that's ready to be used and loved. And when you get bored of it, you'll have the opportunity to buy some custom parts if you want to and dress it up the way you want to again. I feel like I have to keep saying this because I know people are going to complain. There's no part of me that's suggesting that every single person on this planet should buy a Hinderer knife. For a lot of people, they can afford it and they look at them and they go, these just aren't for me. And that's perfectly okay, right? But if you enjoy the aesthetic, if you are looking to purchase, you're looking to step up from production to super high-end production, or some people would define these as mid-tech. I'm not going to go into that. You're looking to step up into the next tier, and you really want to, you know, put your money where, in my opinion, it's really going to have the most value in all areas. Go with Hinderer knives. That is definitely my opinion. Something we didn't talk about is the array of different steels that Hinderer has used in the past, but rest assured, whether you're looking for 01 tool steel or something like it, you're looking for S35VN or something like 20CV, just show you so you can see here. Hinderer uses so many different types of steel, you know, and in so many different blade geometries and finishes and things. I mean, there's truly something for everybody who's really looking to go for it. So, guys, that was one of the most ridiculous, ranty, rambly videos that I've ever done, but I just wanted an opportunity to just really dive into this and talk about what it was, you know, that made me love Hinderer knives so much. And for me, a lot of it is indescribable, right? There's only so many words that I can use to describe why I love these over other things. You know, sometimes it's just his particular stonewash or his particular ergonomics, you know, or a specific model and how things all fit together. It's just, a lot of it is indescribable. But I hope, amidst all this crazy rambling, I hope that sorry about that. I guess I talked for so long that my phone literally decided to cut me off. But anyways, guys, I think that's a good stopping point. I think that's really all that I can say. I hope that at the very least, anybody who was teetering on Hinderer knives, you were kind of on the fence, you know, really I'm not 100% sure. I really would like an in-depth, you know, hear from somebody who really is obsessed over them. Then yeah, you know, hopefully this video was helpful for you. But in any case, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.